This is PWF Empire Live.
It's the best thing going today.
The best insight and analysis on the hottest topics in the world of wrestling happens here. From storylines and news to rumors and reviews, we've got the action covered from bell to bell. Presented by PWFEmpire.com with your hosts,
Steven,
Evan Medina, and J-Dub.
do I have everybody's attention now?
The match starts now.
Welcome, one and all, to PWF Empire Live. It is I, Evan. Yes, I am back from last week's absence, but I am the only one who was in the introduction who is actually on the show tonight, because I am going to be joined by Lucas and DJ Cass tonight, and I'm going to throw it over to Lucas here in a second to get things started. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining us here on this, as Jay would say, Tuesday. Lucas, what do we got?
Well, what do we have? It's a PWTR invasion, it seems. Last week, Jay and yourself was missing. Now tonight, it's Jay and Steven missing. So what is going on here? I wonder what's going on here. To those listening, please don't think that myself and Cass are possibly here to invade PWF Empire Live tonight. But with that being said, Cass, are you there, man? What is up with you as well?
I'm doing just fine. I don't know about this whole hostile takeover, but we're just filling in for the nice guys tonight, so let's get to it.
Alrighty, and with that being said, we have a lot of interesting buzz surrounding wrestling right now, and we're going to present that to you. We have some of the most controversial topics on this show, I would want to say. We're going to be talking about AJ Styles, the Bullet Club, and Roman Reigns tonight. We're going to be talking about the build-up to Payback, the breakthrough of NXT guys since their arrivals after WrestleMania, and is there an agenda behind Shane McMahon controlling Monday Night Raw? What is the purpose? So stay tuned for this entire show, because I'm pretty sure, are going to get into it, and I have a lot to say. So the discussion starts right now with AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, and the Bullet Club saga that unfolded last night on Monday Night Raw. We had AJ Styles reunite with the Bullet Club backstage in the UK last night on Monday Night Raw. They were reminiscing about their days from the past in the independent scene, and how Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows have finally arrived, and they've been waiting for this opportunity for the longest time. They were hugging it out, then they were seen walking off together and, hugging and being all happy. Later on that same night, we got Roman Reigns and AJ Styles confronting each other, and Roman Reigns basically saying that while AJ Styles is a phenomenal wrestler, he's not here to be out-wrestled because he's coming for the big fight, and he rather be respected being world champion than be liked by not having that championship. And then AJ Styles said he'd rather be both respected and liked, because that's what's going to make him a phenomenal champion. The segment ended with the Bullet Club destroying and attacking Roman Reigns from behind after AJ Styles had walked away. So there's a sign there that possibly the reunion of the Bullet Club is back in the WWE. We had Damian Clark mouthing off on YouTube last week in the comment section and in the chat, talking about why didn't I relate the Bullet Club with Roman Reigns and AJ Styles last week. Well, there was no reason to, because last week, quite frankly, there was no connection with Bullet Club and AJ Styles, but last night we got clear indication of that. So you guys have been waiting for that, and here we are. We're going to talk about the Bullet Club possibly reuniting with AJ Styles. Guys, what do you think?
I mean, hold on. See this right here, people? I'm a Bullet Club fanatic, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. But, Lucas, you said that last night it was clear. To me, it was clear. To anybody who is a casual wrestling fan and does not know the New Japan background, doesn't know that Styles and Gallows and Anderson did what they did in New Japan as the Bullet Club, then to them, it was just weird. Believe me, I marked the heck out when I saw that, because I was like, yes. And by the way, I am calling Luke Gallows, Doc, because I'm not for that. Like, I know him as Doc Gallows, people, so I'm just going to go along with that. But as far as the execution, I don't like the way that they did that because, like I said, if you're a casual fan, you don't know who they are. You don't know why they're interacting. So they're probably like, who are these two big men? And I don't like the interaction between Gallows and Anderson with AJ this early. I mean, I would have liked to see this play out more over the last couple of weeks. I didn't have a problem the way that they came out last week. But it's kind of weird to me on how, like, they came out of nowhere, then all of a sudden they're backstage like they're full-time employees. So, yeah, like I said, just the execution of it was just a little off to me.
I don't know. I'm more in the train of enjoying the way that it's been done so far. I like the way they kind of just came in a rogue way. It was a really cool appearance, had me marking out, and then them being backstage reuniting with AJ Styles was really cool too. So thus far for me, I don't have complaints, and I like them beating down on Roman Reigns, and then AJ saying, "Oh well, you know, I didn't know this was gonna happen," and to me it entices the main story and makes it more interesting. They're just an added dynamic to a story which otherwise so far hasn't been one that I would consider bad or one that I would consider something I'm not enjoying at all, but something that it was lacking some spice, and I think that these two guys having any sort of involvement definitely spices things up a little bit.
But it seemed awkward though because once again it came out of nowhere and it's rushed. Like out of nowhere we see Carl Anderson and Gallows backstage with AJ Styles, and I'm expected to believe that this is a big moment, that this is finally the moment is here, and this is the biggest thing in wrestling right now, seeing them unite backstage. Am I supposed to believe that this is a big deal judging by how it was executed last night? And I don't know if I should be happy with the way they presented it because it came out of nowhere once again. It's like everything they're doing with the Bullet Club is coming out of nowhere. Like WWE, it's either hit or miss with them as far as the Bullet Club is concerned right now. So I just don't know what the direction is for the Bullet Club. It's not clear yet, and I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing, but I'm a little bit iffy because I feel like that's taking away from the hype heading into Payback. Like the focus right now is more on what the Bullet Club is going to do as opposed to the actual match between Roman Reigns and AJ Styles. I'm not sure. Like it feels like AJ Styles and Roman Reigns are taking a backseat, and I'm not sure if I like that.
Yeah, because Evan, not to mean to cut you off, because the thing about this is, I said that it feels rushed, and Lucas, you're right, it does feel rushed because honestly, the first time when it comes to AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns, this is a first-time matchup on pay-per-view. The first match should mean something. The first match should pretty much be just about AJ and Roman. But when you kind of rush the situation with Gallows and Anderson, bringing them into the fold, now it's kind of like, okay, we're wondering, are they going to join Reigns? Are they going to join AJ? And also, with them interacting this early, you can clearly tell that they're not going to join AJ Styles. It's like they're blatantly telling you, which is why I think if they would have just not have them interact the next week and you actually played this out just a little bit more, maybe even going all the way past the pay-per-view, even beyond, you could have had more possibilities with this.
Yeah, see, I think there is some cool possibilities. I like that piece. And I also think that, I know you mentioned before, Lucas, that maybe it was a little bit downplayed for them, their debut, but I think it was Cass who earlier made a point that said, you know, that there are going to be people who wouldn't even know the Bullet Club necessarily if they're not akin to anything other than WWE. So I think that they played it fine. They actually did a good job of introducing, to me at least, the Bullet Club to those who aren't familiar with it, them and their history with AJ. I like that backstage segment for that exact reason. And I do agree with what you're saying in terms of maybe it's taking a little bit away from Reigns versus AJ, but I don't think WWE's put a whole lot of fuel into that feud so far. As a feud, they've kind of had AJ off doing what he's doing and Reigns off doing what he's doing, and I'm not really seeing the connection with those two as much. So this is almost kind of bridging that gap a little bit better for me. So I'm trying to just, you know, see the other point or other side of this thing. Yeah,
and that's the problem, is the fact that we're supposed to believe AJ Styles is the #1 contender, that he could possibly defeat Roman Reigns at Payback. But the problem is, he doesn't seem like a guy that I should be taking seriously right now. I don't know. I feel like AJ Styles, there's no way he's going to win at Payback. I can't buy him as a threat. I can't buy him as this dominant force. And that's the part of me that kind of is hating what Bullet Club is doing right now. Because if Bullet Club is supposed to be threatening and menacing and dangerous to Roman Reigns' world title, they're supposed to come off more badass and, I don't know, more ruthless. Give them more of an edge to make it seem like AJ Styles really stands a chance. And right now, I just feel like it's dry. It's not coming off the way it should be with the Bullet Club and AJ Styles, right? We're supposed to believe that they're a unit, that they're a force that's going to change WWE, but we're not getting that. And I know everybody out there who are Bullet Club fans, they love the hell out of this. They love it so much just because they get to see them on TV. But for me, that's not enough. I need to see more. I guess we are going to see more in the upcoming weeks. But to me, don't be surprised if there's a swerve. And in fact, it's not the Bullet Club reuniting. The Bullet Club actually turns on AJ Styles because it seems like that's what they're going to do. And honestly, if that's what they do, I'd be all for it because to me, that's what makes the most sense right now.
Well, see, I think that's you pretty much answered your own question with when it comes to like, are we going to get more? Like, I think we should give this a little more time before just jumping all over it and being like, oh, it's not enough yet. I mean, you could say, hey, I want to see an impact right off the bat, but for me personally, like, just getting doses is okay, because then it's just like slowly but surely building up to something huge that could happen. I think it's building the anticipation, at least for me as an individual. So I'm all right with what we've seen so far.
But Evan, here's the thing. Coming off for me as somebody who is actually familiar with Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson and AJ Styles and their history, coming off from me, I'm actually willing to well, actually not. Let me rephrase that. I'm not willing to wait because I know what they can bring to a table, but to a casual fan, they just did, like I said, I just feel they did a poor job when it came to like the history. Again, if you're a casual fan, you don't know who these guys are. Two big men like hanging out with this redneck. Like what's the connect with that? So I'll give it more time, but they just need to do better on the execution of it.
Yeah, that's I mean, like it's a main event, so you want the main event to have as much hype as possible. Do you guys feel like right now there's this buzz surrounding Roman Reigns and AJ Styles? And I don't feel there is that buzz. No. That's why I feel like they should be going all out, giving us as much as they can every week to hype this up with the Bullet Club. But they're giving us bits and pieces of it, which, to Evan's point, it makes sense. You know, they're not trying to rush it, or not that they're trying to rush it, but they don't want to give everything away right away. But at the same time, we need the buzz. We need something to get behind for this match, and there's not any buzz right now surrounding that.
Well, it's tough, especially when WWE as a company, I'm pretty sure this is something we could all agree on, hasn't done an effective job of giving you anybody who feels like they're in the main event scenario or ready for that position. And AJ Styles is no more ready than insert babyface here. There's really nobody on that roster right now who would be against Roman Reigns, and you say, oh, well, this is a good championship feud because both guys feel like they could win that title. And, you know, I mean, you could even argue that Roman Reigns doesn't feel like he belongs there. I'm not personally saying that he doesn't, but some people do feel that way. So, again, and I mean, I know enough about the Bullet Club, too. I'm familiar with those guys, and I still think it's okay that they have at least given you a little bit of background information. I kind of want to move the conversation away from that because that's not really the whole discussion point here. I just think AJ Styles, he feels like a guy who deserves the main event, but he wasn't built up properly to get there. But that's something you could say about the entire company.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I don't feel emotionally attached right now with this storyline. You know how many times WWE does that where the fans can relate to the wrestler? You know, a perfect example of that, CM Punk or Daniel Bryan. As of late, these championship main event storylines and feuds that they've been building over the last few months, I just can't seem to connect or feel any emotion behind because I don't feel that build-up. I don't feel that energy with the wrestler. You got to take me on that journey and that path. You just threw in two random guys to face each other who have no previous history, no chemistry or anything like that, and you're giving us AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns. So to Evan's credit, yes, like, you didn't properly build up AJ Styles for me to be excited for his big run at the title, and I doubt he's going to get the championship. But if he does, I mean, holy shit, I'd be surprised. Number one, but I don't think they're going to pull the trigger that fast on AJ Styles.
Well, again, it all goes back to what I said. The fact that they're bringing Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson into the fold, they're telling two different stories, honestly. Because, like I said, this match is a first-time matchup. It should pretty much just be just about AJ and Roman. Not like, are Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson going to do to interfere in that match, or like the fact on what influence are they going to have with Roman Reigns? Like I said, a lot of people are guessing, are they going to join AJ or are they going to join Roman, when it should be just those two individuals and having a good match. That's what they could have gotten away with it, but because they've thrown two different stories in, it hasn't been coming off right.
It almost feels as if what they're going to do is just have the Bullet Club turn on AJ Styles, because I don't know which one of you guys mentioned it earlier, but they're basically giving away the fact that they're uniting now. And if that's not the if that's not the big payoff, I mean, because that's what we were supposed to get at Payback, right? That the Bullet Club was going to help AJ. Well, shit, they're already helping AJ, so there has to be something bigger coming out of this, because otherwise the result at Payback is going to be obvious and predictable, and it might make for a boring main event if Bullet Club does indeed help out AJ Styles. So it almost feels like now WWE has booked themselves into a corner where they have to do the complete opposite and give us something different.
Yeah, but that's almost okay because you're still uncertain about what you're going to get. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, I think that's okay.
Yeah, well, we'll see in the upcoming weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we are now transitioning into buy or sell. And the first buy or sell coming up here is the overall build-up to Payback and the match card for Payback, and whether or not these matches actually have any value behind them. We had Shane McMahon last night announced on Monday Night Raw 3 matches. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. It was made official. Dean Ambrose against Chris Jericho. Natalya will be taking on Charlotte for the Women's Championship with Bret Hart in Natalya's corner, which was I guess sort of newsworthy. We have Cesaro facing The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship. In the tournament final, it's going to be Enzo and Cass taking on the Vaudevillains. And, of course, the main event, Roman Reigns against AJ Styles for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So the question I have for you guys is, are you guys invested in this Payback pay-per-view as a whole? And has WWE sold you guys on the fact that this is indeed going to be a watchable pay-per-view? It almost feels very Chicago-themed in the fact that the WWE is giving the fans a lot of wrestling at this show, and guys that Chicago would normally get behind, the Cesaros and the Kevin Owens and guys like that. So it almost feels like they're giving Chicago what they want that night.
I love this. I think the card's really good, and I'm all bought on watching it. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to it. I like all of these matches, and I thought that the Raw prior to this one was excellent. This week's held up on its own as well. I mean, I'm really impressed with the Payback build-up. To be honest, I think this build-up has had qualities to it which outdoes what WrestleMania's build-up did, because that build-up really lacked in a lot of ways. I see more story development with what's going on here. I mean, just look at, say, Ambrose versus Jericho. That may not be everybody's favorite feud on paper, but I mean, you get Ambrose basically taking over Jericho's talk show segment, very interesting, and then them getting into it by the end of the show on Monday this week. So I can't really find much complaint about this card. It's really, really good, and the tag tournament was a cool dynamic, and you have 2 amazing NXT tag teams finally now on the main roster. This is fantastic.
I'm going to have to be the heel here, and I'm going to say I sell this card so hard. And I'm about to give legitimate reasons why. Number 1, I have seen Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens before. Oh, that's 1. Dean Ambrose versus Chris Jericho doesn't incite me because apparently Ambrose does not care that he lost a big match at WrestleMania, and the only reason why they're feuding is because apparently the Ambrose Asylum has been taken over. And the tag team tournament final, that's pretty much a given for me because I love tag team wrestling, and the fact that they're not even putting a lot of emphasis on their main event right now is just completely lacking. There's been less interaction, not a lot of interaction between AJ and Roman, not a lot of mic time until we got some last night and on SmackDown a couple weeks ago. So it's just like, I'm going to have to sell this card because I feel as if these are some matches that I feel are predictable. And also, there's one match I've seen before, and there's one match that I just don't care about because I already know the result of it, and Dean Ambrose is going to win because Jericho always loses. And until they put more emphasis on the AJ versus Roman main event and give me a reason to care, the main event's supposed to help carry the pay-per-view. I'm supposed to tune in to see the World Heavyweight title match, and right now, I'm just not feeling it as – like, it feels like an ROH/NXT show to me, pretty much.
Now, in terms of what Evan said, with this build-up over, shadowing WrestleMania's build-up, yes, I agree with that. But at the end of the day, I still feel as though Payback as a whole, the build-up has been absolute shit. I have no doubt that the actual pay-per-view may actually turn out to be one of the best this year because of the fact that it's going to be in Chicago. The fans there are going to be rowdy and they're going to be loud. And these matches on paper seem like they're going to be great. Of course, Jericho versus Ambrose, that's going to be a hell of a match. We know Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn is going to be a hell of a wrestling match. We know that the tag team final match is going to be great. All these matches on paper look like they're going to, be amazing, and all these matches have potential to steal the show. But the thing is, the build-up is not there. The hype and the emotion is not there. So I hate when WWE does this, where they give us a good card, but the build-up has to suck, and that's affecting the way I'm going to enjoy Payback. Because it's like what Kaz said, these matches kind of seem like a second thought, like an afterthought. You have Ambrose versus Jericho. That feud hasn't been taken seriously so far. It almost feels like it's comedy hour every single week. Owens versus Sami Zayn, we've seen many times. So yeah, that's another match there that even though it's going to be great, what's the continuation of that? They haven't really separated what they did in NXT on the main roster. It almost feels like
I didn't even mention that.
Yeah, they're just taking off of what we already know and continuing with that, but they're not giving us anything new, no new material as far as Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are concerned. I think the only thing that they've done a good job at here is the tag team tournament, and that's pretty much it. But everything else on paper, while it may seem awesome, the actual build-up has not been so good, and I have to sell this as well. I really have to sell it.
I don't know. I fully disagree. I think this has been better than WrestleMania's build-up. It's not. Could it be better? I mean, yeah. I guess you could always say things could be better, but I still think this has definitely been a major step up from WWE's biggest show of the year. And everyone was lobbying for Zayn versus Owens at WrestleMania, and yeah, it should have happened at WrestleMania. But the fact that you're getting it the pay-per-view after is good. And a point that Cass made earlier is that you're getting a match that you've seen before, and it's like a lot of times the pay-per-view after WrestleMania is full of matches you've already seen before, and in this case, it's not, which is really a good thing. So it doesn't feel like WrestleMania rehash or a bunch of rematches, and that's a good thing. And I'm very into this show.
It's just like I've seen El Generico versus Kevin Steen, Ladder Wars 2012 ROH. Yes, I have seen this match before. So what in the world? How am I supposed to get excited for Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens?
How are you not? The match has always been good.
I've seen that NXT Takeover Rival. I've seen that NXT Takeover Unstoppable. I've seen it in Ladder Wars. Seriously.
Those are all great matches, and this one will be too. So what is there to be upset about? It's not a John Cena versus Randy Orton situation where you've seen it 1,000 times and you're like, oh my god, they can't do anything else. Like, these two guys are innovators. They'll come up with spots you haven't seen them do with each other before.
But what's this feud been about since they've been on the main roster?
Think about how much more awesome it would be if they had actually built up Kevin Owens to be this NXT badass dominant Kevin Owens. That would be 10 times better. But the fact that we're getting Owens and Sami Zayn, that's going to be a great match, right? But at the same time, you could make this a whole lot freaking better if it was Kevin Owens, this badass, this guy that we know that loves to get in your face and be rude and be arrogant and be brash. If we got that Kevin Owens to face Sami Zayn, this match would be a lot better because it has emotion and it has story. It has a backstory to it. But it's just we're gonna get these two guys to perform, and that's all it is. It's gonna be a performance and nothing more. That's all it's gonna be, and that's the part that I hate about it.
Okay. Oh, and real quick on Ambrose and Jericho too. Like, what's the feud about for that?
Nothing. I mean, what, a freaking plant? They're taking over each other's segments. Like, is that really the story we're getting here for Jericho and Ambrose? This is pathetic. It's the year 2016, people.
But see, again, you're not gonna hear a whole lot different from me when it comes to build-up. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that this has been amazing build-up so far, but at least there's been something. It's not like they just said, well, Jericho and Ambrose are gonna fight each other. At least there has been some talking back and forth between the two of them. At least there has been a little bit of a dynamic, be it dumb. And again, with Zayn versus Owens, yeah, this is nowhere near as good as, like, say, their NXT story or even their ROH story, but like, the main thing that I was trying to say is, hey, you're complaining about a match that you've seen before, but it's a fucking good match, and it's always been good, and it's gonna be good again. So I wouldn't complain about the match happening again. I would make my only complaint about the fact that the story has lacked, and they've basically dropped the ball on this since January, when Zayn first came in, and they could have really capitalized on that, built from Royal Rumble all the way till WrestleMania, and made an excellent story out of it, and they dropped the ball on that. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that one, but it's like, this match is going to be good. Like, the card is looking good. So if we're buying or selling the card, I'm all in.
But at the end of the day, I feel like build-up matters because the payoff and the execution matters too. If you win, like, let's say Kevin Owens wins the match at Payback, but because of the build-up being absolute crap, it's just going to be a win for him. But is that win really going to determine anything going for him in the future? Like, is that win really going to benefit him a lot? That's what I'm talking about. That's why you need build-up, because if you just have the match, it's just going to be two guys wrestling, and at the end of the day, nobody cares about who wins. And I don't think that's enough for me, because we've seen a lot of that, and at the end of the day, there's never benefit off of that. We need benefits nowadays.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we've had this debate before about whether it, story matters more or in-ring matters more. The truth is, I don't think either one matters more. I think it's a 50-50 conversation. Basically, all I'm saying is the card itself, I buy. Like, again, I'm not looking at anything else besides the card and saying this is a great wrestling card. This is honestly, in some ways, a better card than WrestleMania's itself. And I mean. Okay. The build-up to this pay-per-view hasn't been awesome either, but it's been better, and the last couple of Raws have been a lot easier for me to sit through than the Raws that were leading up to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
definitely not this one.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
A lot easier than those. I mean, I'm just saying, my expectation level always inflates a huge amount when it comes to WrestleMania, and this isn't that, and it's still better. I'm impressed with that. I am impressed with the fact that WWE 2 weeks in a row could make me sit there and not feel like, oh my god, when will this end? I mean, if I'm not feeling that way,
I feel that way still.
Well, that's fine. We have a differing opinion. That's okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, going back to what you said, Evan, which was interesting, you mentioned how we're getting something new out of Payback, and we're not getting any rematch or any rehash from WrestleMania. But it's interesting you say that because the theme and the concept for Payback is rehash, like payback, revenge. Usually in the past years, we would get stories that relate to what happens at WrestleMania at the following pay-per-view. This year, it's been completely different. And that's another thing that's affecting the build-up for Payback is the fact that you can't take anything from WrestleMania and build off of it. There's no grudges from many of these feuds. Like Roman Reigns and AJ Styles, there's no grudge there. There's no grudge for a lot of these storylines, and I think that's another thing that's affecting this overall.
Payback's going to be interesting, I'll tell you that.
See, for me, I'm more of a big fan of the WrestleMania post pay-per-view, the pay-per-view after WrestleMania, not being a bunch of rehash matches. And this is for me personally as a preference, because I think WrestleMania should be the culmination of feuds, not a feud that can be continued 4 weeks later. I think it should be the be-all, end-all, and then you build up on new things following it, because to me that takes away from the meaning of WrestleMania if everything's just going to happen again 4 weeks later anyway. Sure. But that's, again, I know that's a whole nother debate. We're almost kind of getting away from what we're really talking about here.
All right. And with that being said, this leads us to the next buy or sell, the breakthrough of the NXT guys. Ever since their arrivals to WWE after WrestleMania, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, Enzo, and Big Cass have all kind of made a name for themselves in the WWE for the last 3 weeks. They've been put on the map. They've been showcased both on Raw and SmackDown. So buy or sell on the arrivals of the NXTers.
I'm kind of mixed on this because, I mean, I think Enzo and Big Cass, if it was just about them, I would say bye, bye, bye. Not the NSYNC song. But, I don't know, like Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, I'm feeling more like it's okay. It's just pretty standard. You know, it's like I got to give it more time. I can't really sit here after a couple weeks and just be like, yes, like these guys are awesome. But I can't really say that there's been anything terrible about their build so far. So I would buy, yeah. I'd say that it's been better than some of these other NXT debuts so far.
Okay. Hold on, people. Check this out. This is where we're at right now. Okay. Now, I'm going to have to go ahead and buy this, not just because of what the T-shirt said, but because when we've seen the thing about these NXTers that come up to the main roster, the one thing that's been lacking for them is something for them to do. I mean, Tyler Breeze he got something to do, and again, he's my biggest gripe with his situation. But yeah, he had something to do. He had Dolph Ziggler. Now, as soon as you saw Enzo and Big Cass, when they came up, they had the Dudley Boys to feud with, and that's going to probably continue. Baron Corbin comes up. He's got Dolph Ziggler. He's got something to do. Even though Apollo Crews isn't doing much right now, they're showcasing them. At least they're getting on TV, and the fact that they're already in feuds, that's probably going to step them up even higher on the totem pole of the main roster is good on my side. So yeah, I'm going to have to go and buy this as well.
I have to sell this, and I know I'm going to be the heel here, but I am selling the fact that ever since they've been called up, these NXT guys, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, Enzo and Big Cass, and how I forgot to mention the Vaudevillains in this conversation as well. I feel as though, yes, they've been showcased a lot. That part of it is good, but the problem is I feel like we're not getting enough out of them yet. And I know it takes a process. I know I have to be patient. It's a week-to-week cycle, so I can't say that overnight it's going to happen, the success and all of that. But come on, this is WWE. They've been around long enough to know how to properly build up and debut guys to make impacts. We've seen it over the many years of WWE's existence, how guys made an impact on their first night. Like John Cena, for example, beating Kurt Angle in 2002, and you know, I just feel like they don't try anymore. They don't try anymore in terms of properly building people up to the right.
Well,
what's that, Cass?
I mean, Lucas, this all goes back to like they're in that mindset. They think everybody watches NXT. And here's the thing, I'll even say, I watch NXT on a frequent basis. I know who all those guys are, but again, to a casual fan, they don't know who these guys are that are coming up. That's on WWE's fault. So, Louis, you're telling me that Enzo and Big Cass, the way they debut by basically calling out the Dudley Boys, was not epic.
It was good the first night, but then the next 2 weeks they do the same exact thing, and they're using the same lines, and they're calling the Dudleys the same names that they've been calling them every week. At the end of the day, that's going to get old, and they've been doing the same thing. The Dudleys are not even retaliating. Like, they're making a mockery out of the Dudley Boys each and every single week. What's the point of the story in that if it's just going to be one-sided the whole time?
Well, Lucas, here's the thing. This is where WWE is going to come into play. This is where vignettes come into play. This is where mic time comes into play. This is where promo time comes into play. This is where match time comes into play. It's their job to help build these guys up as soon as they leave the developmental post. And yes, I know who they are, but to a casual fan, they're actually probably going to be willing to give them the time and the effort to catch up. Because remember, for a casual fan, that's the first time that they saw them. So to them, they're still on the up and up. But for a person from like me who I know, and I'll admit, I would like to see Enzo, Big Cass, the Vaudevillains, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin on a much bigger totem pole than they are right now, because I know what they can bring. But they have to get them established with the casual fans first and actually build towards them. Then they can actually move them up the totem pole to bigger and better things.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, Cass, and that's kind of my way of thinking. That was my way of thinking with the Bullet Club. That's my way of thinking with these guys too, because it's a type of thing where you have people that come from NXT and they're not going to be stars overnight, and they shouldn't be, because they come from developmental, and they were stars down there in that niche audience. But when you come to the big audience and the big stage, they have to be built up again. It's like starting over. And it's really interesting because that road to getting them to the next level is something that is not easy to achieve. It takes some time. And for years and years, they've been building guys up by starting them off with just winning jobber matches. And we have seen that time and time again. And Apollo Crews doing that, that's okay with me. It's okay as long as it's the first few weeks and then you start to change things. If you do it for 2 straight months, it's like, all right, we've seen this. So I see your frustration, Lucas. I really do. But I think that it's too quick to be that frustrated, especially with Enzo and Big Cass, because even though they have said the same sort of thing, that's always been their deal. They've always kind of been, they have that catchphrase so the entire audience can say it with them. And honestly, it's like it sends chills down my spine because of how into it
And
the crowd is. And they're so over. It's amazing.
But here's the thing, like, you guys make good points how I should wait for this process to unfold and everything. But why do I have to, like, this has been going on for far too long. You guys have said it for many, many years. Why do I have to keep waiting for the execution to pay off? I'm tired of the same generic build-ups for every new guy that they introduce to the WWE. It's been the exact same thing for many years. We need to see some change. And before, that wasn't how it was done. Before, like I mentioned it earlier, like a guy like John Cena and Randy Orton and Batista, Bobby Lashley, these guys used to make impacts on their first night in WWE. Why can't it be back to that same old motto as before? Why?
I mean, Lucas, I don't think it's necessarily the problem, because you got to remember, that's 2 different eras. Look who John Cena. No. Here's the thing. Look who John Cena got to work with. Look who Batista got to work with.
And
look
that's
who Randy Orton got to. Look who Randy Orton got to work. Look who Randy Orton got to work with. You look at the roster right now.
That's WWE's fault, because they don't build up. They don't build up enough guys for these new guys to face and benefit off of. And that's what I'm trying to say, is the fact that because this has been going on for too many years, they don't build up the prior guys that have come before them. So then when we get to the newer guys who are now going to take on those established guys, if you want to call them, because at this point not everybody's established. And hell, the last star that they freaking established on their roster is John Cena. So the fact that you don't establish stars nowadays, that's the problem with why when the new guys come up, they're never going to be established either, because this pattern continues and continues. And that's what I'm trying to say. You mentioned it earlier. When Orton and Cena came up, look at the roster and how star-studded it was. But that was because WWE knew how to build them up. They made impact on their first night. With these new guys nowadays, they don't do that. And if you continue to do that, they're all going to fail. No matter who you call up, they're all going to fail because of the past failure. And that's what I'm trying to say.
All right.
Well, people making an impact is always going to be important, but I think that the immediacy of the impact isn't always important, because you saw, like, Braun Strowman the night he debuted was like, wow, this guy is something to look at here. Whoa. And then look and Cass is already laughing, because look at what's happened with him. I mean, do we really take him all that seriously at this point? And we want to, but there's really no reason to. He came up too soon. And I mean, I guess you could say Apollo Crews may have came up quite soon too, but he seems a lot more polished in the ring than Braun Strowman did. And still does. I mean, Apollo Crews can do some unbelievable things. So, I mean, I think so far it's not bad, but we are in an era right now where things aren't built up the same way they used to be. It's more for show. It's more for, like, let's see what we can do for the flash and dance more than it is about building up credible stars in the same way it used to be. The system just isn't that same way anymore. And that is a reflection on WWE as a company, but I'm not going to sit here and say that these individual NXT build-ups haven't been good so far, because so far I think they've been better than a lot of the ones we had before that. Look at, say, Adam Rose, and, I mean, he's one example of a guy who came up and it was like, oh, all right, party time, this could be okay. Like Fandango, the same type of deal. It's like, all right, this could be... Yeah, Emma too, and Emma's a very talented girl, and her gimmick when she came up with Santino, terrible, but she's capable of so many better things, and what she's doing right now is a hell of a lot better than that ever was. So again, it's all about execution. I see what you're saying, Lucas. I just think that right now this is on the up compared to some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the rise of these guys, or NXT guys, like you guys have mentioned a few of them, Bo Dallas and Fandango and guys like that, when they make it to the main roster for the next few weeks. But then, as months go by, we realize they become shit. And, that's what I fear might happen to guys like Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin. And, that's my worry. Because WWE has built that fear in me for years, every time they introduce somebody and then they fail, that's why I'm selling this, because I don't have confidence in WWE doing a good job once again. So
we will see.
I gotta say, yeah. On to the next buy or sell here. This has to do with Bray Wyatt and the fact that he was injured last Wednesday. He suffered a right calf injury at last Wednesday's live event in Italy, which sent him home packing. He was taken off the European tour. And ever since then, we don't know any further information on Bray Wyatt, but it seems like he's going to be missing time. So, buy or sell on when Bray Wyatt returns. Is he doomed for failure for the rest of his career, or is there going to be success in the new direction of Bray Wyatt?
I don't believe that he is doomed for his career, and I've been the biggest Bray Wyatt, Wyatt family I don't want to say critic, because I like the Bray Wyatt and the Bray Wyatt family. I'm not as much of a critic as I am just a realist about it. Like, they have always been the type of group who, yes, we like very much, but they have continued to lose matches and programs and feuds that make everything that Wyatt says feel irrelevant and make the group as a whole feel irrelevant. I'm not so sure if a repackage is the most necessary thing, as much as things are still possible for him to be a relevant piece for WWE, but the problem is they're going to have to give him consistently good booking, and I mean, that's a very hard thing to come by in WWE's current state. So is he always going to be an interesting character and always going to be entertaining in one way or another? You can bet on that, as long as they leave him as the character is right now. But is he ever going to be saved? I still think that's possible. I'm just not gonna bank on it. I wouldn't, I wouldn't bet on that. So I'm gonna is Bray Wyatt officially doomed? So yeah, I'm going to sell that he's officially doomed, but it ain't looking good right now, at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I sell that as well. I mean, here's the thing, people. You've listened to me on the Post Raw Rundown. You've heard me say many times, I want to get that fat white man's ass off my television because I can't stand his promos. However, shout out to Jay. This is the however part. Now, I mean, as long as he's keep getting reactions. I mean, some people, I've always said, I feel as if Bray Wyatt needs to be fixed. He needs to be repackaged, and I still think he does. But as long as he's getting reactions, they can still make something out of him. I mean, last week, I think it was last week on Raw when he was in that tag team match, you cannot say when he got that hot tag, it felt like he was more comfortable, like he knew what he wanted to do, like he wanted to take on this new role of being a possible babyface, which was still unclear that he'll be a babyface. But like you saw the way that he did just right there in that hot tag, and if he's willing to bring some of that to the table, there's just so many possibilities that they could do down the line with him. So yeah, I sell the fact that he's doomed.
I sell the fact that he's doomed too. I don't think it's going to be the end for him, but there is room for doubt there, like Evan said. It's not looking pretty right now, and it doesn't help the fact that he just started to gain some momentum, and now he goes down again with an injury. His partner, Luke Harper, is also down with an injury, so this might spell the end for the Wyatt family. And as far as that is concerned, I hope that they do put an end to the Wyatt family, because I see more success for Bray Wyatt. I see more success for Bray Wyatt individually than I do with him continuing to be the leader of the Wyatt family.
But we saw what happened the first time. He was not taken seriously. When you have a character like that, he needs followers.
But you're not letting me finish. I think they're going to what they need to do is turn him face and have him be this individual force, much like The Undertaker, and he needs to be more silent. He needs to talk less when he comes back. He needs to not always have matches. He needs to be like a special attraction and only wrestle at pay-per-views and win and be a dominant force who's silent on his own, and he wrestles on his own 2 feet, and he doesn't follow anybody, and he's no longer a leader. He's just his own self-identity, much like The Undertaker. I think if you build Bray Wyatt to be a force individually as a babyface and as this guy that everybody can be intimidated by and the fans get behind because he's a legend and things like that, I think that's where most money comes out of Bray Wyatt. But I think this needs to be the end of the Wyatt family once and for all.
I think you make a point with the Wyatt family being no more, because I almost feel like that it should... Ideally, the Wyatt family is the best case scenario, but I feel like they may have just run that thing dry by having it fail not only once but twice. It's almost like, how much more can we do with this family? I mean, they even added in Strowman and everything, and it's like, whether it's injuries, whether it's a lack of consistent storytelling or anything else, the Wyatt family has really suffered in a lot of ways, and that's obviously a huge shame. But I mean, I don't know about Bray Wyatt being more silent. I really think his talking is an excellent piece that he has that almost nobody else has. He's very dynamic on the mic. I just think that he needs different things to talk about. It almost feels like he kind of says the same type of things all the time. I just think he could be a little more dynamic in the content of what he says, but I think his voice and the way in which he speaks is one of the most dynamic things WWE has to offer. But I like the special attraction idea. I think that actually is something interesting and something WWE can benefit from, because they don't have that right now, because Undertaker is, once a year appearance, and he's on his last legs. And then Sting's gone, so he was the other special attraction as far as I'm concerned. He's retired, and now you don't have that right now, at least not consistently. So Wyatt being a special attraction, that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, and if you have Bray Wyatt wrestle less, and let's say he just wrestles at pay-per-views, people won't get so sick and tired of him like they have, because he cuts the same repetitive promos every week. He wrestles too much, and also this benefits him because part of the problem why he may have gotten injured was because WWE overworks him and he wrestles too much. So maybe if you have him less on TV wrestling and doing house shows and things like that, maybe just book him for pay-per-views and have him wrestle at pay-per-views, and he could become, not saying he's going to be a Brock Lesnar, but he could become a special attraction like Brock Lesnar, who only wrestles at pay-per-views, and like the Undertaker, and becomes this dominant force. I almost feel like that's what benefits Bray Wyatt. That's where he will succeed more at, and it also keeps him healthy at the same time.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I guess we all agree that it's not the end to Bray Wyatt. Maybe more so just the end to the Wyatt family, which again I'm all for, because I still feel like there's a few talented guys out of the Wyatt family, like Luke Harper. He could succeed a lot.
The great Eric Rowan.
Yes, and Eric Rowan.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You better believe Eric Rowan is like gonna win the belt tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned. Let's go. But
yeah, I was gonna get Eric Rowan next.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But to be realistic, though, I mean, Luke Harper really can offer a lot. Like, he's a very solid talent. I mean, in ring-wise, he's honestly one of the best big men I've seen in a long time, maybe ever. I mean, I'm not saying the best ever, but he's up there. He's really, really good, especially considering his size. So it's not like the Wyatt family. And then you look at Braun Strowman, and you're like, man, if this guy just wasn't so green when he came up to the main roster, he very well may be a talented guy down the road. I think that they've really, can miss the boat on that guy just because of how quickly they brought him up. And I understand the reason behind it. He's intimidating looking. He has everything. He has the feel, the look, the persona to be a member of the Wyatt family and be a potential big threat on his own. But it was just too quick. They pulled the trigger a little too quick. And the Wyatt family has really suffered as a result from all these losses in programs and feuds, and it's a shame at the end of the day, because I am a huge Wyatt family supporter, but it's like strike one, strike two, strike, like they're still at the plate and they struck out an hour ago. It's like, come on. So
No,
it's unfortunate.
You mean the Bum family? They were about to get in a feud with the No Power Rangers?
Pretty much. But I feel like they definitely need to have Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper individually succeed on their own. You could release Braun Strowman and push Eric Rowan to be the World Heavyweight Champion. I think that's what would be best for business, to be quite honest with you guys.
Yeah.
All right, final buy or sell, and this is going to be a lot of fun because Evan, you said something interesting earlier in the fact that you've been enjoying the last few episodes of Monday Night Raw. Me and Cass immediately disagreed there, or at least I definitely disagreed. So this is actually the final topic for buy or sell here, and that is the current state of Monday Night Raw and whether or not we have been seeing too much wrestling and not enough storyline development over the last few weeks since WrestleMania for Monday Night Raw. An interesting little fact here was posted today at ProWrestlingInc.com. It was announced at tonight's SmackDown taping. I'm sorry.
Well, no. The SmackDown plug is my idea.
Yeah, the SmackDown plug is your idea, so I'm not even going to get into SmackDown. But per SCSScoops.com, Monday's episode of Raw averaged 3.35 million viewers on the USA Network. This is down 5.5% from last week's 3.529 million viewers. Hour 1 did 486 million viewers. Hour 2 did 3.541 million viewers. And Hour 3 did 2.980 million viewers. So you saw the decline in that. And it was reported to be the first time that the final hour dropped below 3 million since last December. So that is not a good sign for Monday Night Raw there. And I know the show was taped last night, but going back to what I said earlier, and there not being enough storyline advancement and more so just wrestling, because we have gotten a lot of wrestling over the last 2 weeks. Buy or sell on Monday Night Raw just having too much wrestling and not enough storyline progress.
Oh man, I have to point this one out as a huge hypocrisy or double standard for a lot of people, because I remember all those years where people were complaining about there not being enough wrestling on a wrestling show. And that used to, that used to be the big thing. Not enough wrestling on Raw. Not enough wrestling. There isn't enough matches. Why is it called WWE Monday Night Raw when there's no wrestling on it? Why would we even watch this anymore? And it's like, so now there's more wrestling, and everyone is going to complain that there are, too much storytelling now, too much promos, or not enough promos now. Now we don't have enough, talking and backstage segments and this, that, the other. It's like I'm getting myself mixed up because of all this hypocrisy. It's like, I mean, everyone wanted more wrestling, and now that you've got it, now we want more talking again. So it's like, well, what do you want? I mean, should there be a complete balance, literally half wrestling, half talking, or, I mean, what else? What else do you want? All I want ever is a good amount of wrestling and for it to have a purpose behind it. And that's why, not this past Raw, but the Raw before on the 11th of this month, I loved it so much because every match felt like it had some sort of a purpose to it. Whether it was the tag tourney matches, and those weren't even great wrestling matches, but I felt like there was a purpose behind it. And that to me is a lot of what pro wrestling should be about. And I always have thought that promos are an important piece to the puzzle, and so is storytelling. It's extremely important. But on a wrestling program, there should be a good deal of wrestling. So to me, like, you've got what you want, and now that it's there, people are still finding a way to make that a complaint. It's just like, will there ever be a happiness to the fans?
Okay, then. Well, how am I going to top that? Well, okay. Now, I'm going to have to sell that. And I'm about to give a good reason, people. Now, the reason why I have to sell that is because, I mean, you look at that roster right now, it's incredible. You have some really talented guys on that roster. I really don't think it's a necessary of having too much wrestling. It pretty much is just a lack of consequences and a lack of purpose to Monday Night Monday Night Raw. If you would give me more of a purpose to be tuned in to watch Raw every week, I really don't care if there's a lot of. I love wrestling. I don't care if there's a lot of wrestling matches, as long as you give me a purpose to keep tuning back into next week and the week after that and the week after that. Yeah, so I don't think necessarily having too much wrestling is the problem. I just think that there is just not a purpose. Because you can have purpose in the matches. Like I said, there just needs to be more purpose when it comes to Monday Night Raw and the matches itself. Not necessarily not too much wrestling.
I have a problem with there being too much wrestling on Monday Night Raw, because the thing is, when I'm watching these matches, it's like, okay, we're getting good matches, but at the end of the day, what does this do for me in terms of being a fan and wanting to get excited for the next pay-per-view or the next big angle that they're doing? Much to what Cass just said, it just feels like they're giving us matches, but at the end of the day, Evan, you said they serve some sort of purpose to them. I don't think they do, because they feel predictable. They feel like filler almost. And I hate to say that, because wrestling matches should not be looked at as fillers, but in a 3-hour episode of Monday Night Raw every single week, they give us 3 hours. That can be exhausting to the eyes of fans when you give too much wrestling, because they're going to be worn out. They're going to get tired of seeing wrestling and wrestling back to back, and not enough promos, or not enough mixing it up there with one promo and maybe one match. And how even the promos nowadays, they suck, because as we used to see with the Authority, they would just drag it on for 15 minutes talking about the same crap every single week. So they really have to change their format and their structure around for Monday Night Raw. I think the 3 hours is a lot of the problem as well. The fact that it's 3 hours, that third hour really just wears the hell out of you. Usually the first hour is good. The second hour you can bear to sit through. But once you get to that third hour, 10 p.m., it's like, holy crap, we need this show to end already. And by the time we get to 10 p.m., it's like the show, it just feels like an afterthought. Like I'm not really paying attention. And I think a lot of that over the last 2 weeks has to do with the fact that they have given us too much wrestling, and they don't give us a reason to be glued to the television screen to see what's going to happen next. And I think that's a problem.
Well, I'm gonna have to. Okay. Let me give a real quick example. WrestleMania was 5 freaking hours. And you want to know why it felt 5 freaking hours? Not only because the hour was there, but because most of the matches didn't have much of a purpose. Like the first 3 matches of that show didn't have much purpose. When we got to Raw last week, when Shane actually showed up and he made matches that mattered. He made a tournament, and we had tournament matches that mattered. We had AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn, which mattered. Those matches had purpose, and the 3 hours just seemed to roll right by, and that was a lot of wrestling on that show. This week, we had a lot of wrestling. We just didn't have no purpose to them. So I seriously feel as if the problem isn't too much wrestling. It's just there is a lack of purpose when it comes to putting on the matches.
That is 100% what I'm saying. And that's why I enjoyed that Raw so much. For that exact reason. And that's why WrestleMania lacked in some ways, was for that reason too. Not having as much purpose to some of the matches, and other ones having more purpose. And that all comes from build-up. So you do need promos, and you do need backstage segments, and you do need build-up that isn't just the matches themselves. But when there are matches with something on the line, it makes them a hell of a lot easier to watch. And honestly, I can't recall a time where there's been so many enjoyable matches on Raw than in the last couple of years. And that sounds so weird because Raw has been so downhill. It has been so not good consistently. But there's been so many good television matches in the last year or two. And a lot of that can be attributed to the U.S. title when John Cena had it and all those good matches that came with it. And I'm not saying that has helped nor hurt the product. Probably, if anything, it's hurt the product more because there's more bad matches than there ever has been as well. But it's like, man, there have been some really good quality wrestling matches in the last year or two, and that's weird to say. But even though the product itself has not been so good, there's been some good wrestling. So that is one pro, I think, that's come out of this. And I think, Lucas, you did make a decent point when you said, maybe it doesn't make you look as much forward to the next pay-per-view because there's enough good wrestling on Raw. Why would I bother with the next pay-per-view? So that makes a little more sense to me too. But I think the good wrestling on Raw translates to good wrestling on the pay-per-view. So I think it's kind of a hand in hand. You can't be overexposed on Raw. You don't want to get five-star matches on Raw, but you do want to get some good wrestling that's nice, solid action that helps build up and has a reason to be happening.
I just feel like that UK show from last night, from Monday Night Raw, it felt like a house show. And I know it was taped, so that was. Yeah, I know it was taped, so I guess that was part of the reason why WWE didn't decide to give us a home run show for Raw last night, because it's taped and, they don't want to give away all the good stuff on a show that's going to be spoiled. But at the same time, it was just too much freaking wrestling. Like, I don't mind having wrestling, but when it's all about just wrestling matches, which is what last night was all about, and that's why I felt like a house show, I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's the point of me watching this show when I can just, watch SmackDown or something to watch all these wrestling matches? I mean, seriously, that's what it felt like. I want them to go back to that style where, it's wrestling here. We got a good maybe 20-minute wrestling match on Raw. Then they do an outstanding job at a promo for 20 minutes in the ring or something like that. But we don't get that nowadays. And I think another thing that ties into all of this is the fact that I feel hungover from WrestleMania and the lack of build-up to WrestleMania, because I was left out of WrestleMania feeling the excitement and wanting more. And the fact that I'm not getting what I want still, and now that it's after WrestleMania and I'm still not getting what I want, I'm frustrated. It leads to frustration because I haven't gotten what I wanted since January, since February, since, the build-up and the road to WrestleMania began. And it's transitioned over now to after WrestleMania, where, again, it's disappointment. We're not getting enough. I'm growing impatient with the product because it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good consistently, and we're not getting swerves. We're not getting big angles. When is that payoff going to come? Because at this point, this year so far has sucked a lot.
There just needs to be more an emphasis. Like I said, it all goes back to give me a purpose to tune into next week.
Exactly. And, cliffhangers, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about, cliffhangers. I remember last year they used to do that a lot. They used to give us a lot of cliffhangers towards the end of Monday Night Raw, and they left us excited heading into the next week. But this year, I don't even recall one cliffhanger that they've done, one single one in which I got excited for the next Monday Night Raw. I seriously haven't. There hasn't been one single cliffhanger this year, and that's a problem. Like last night ended with Jericho, dropping Ambrose on his ass. You mean to tell me that's exciting heading into next week? It's not.
True.
So that's ultimately a big problem. But all right, that'll do it for buy or sell. And this kind of transitions now and relates into the current state of Monday Night Raw, because now we're going to talk about Shane McMahon, and is there an agenda behind him still controlling Monday Night Raw? We've seen him control Raw now for 3 weeks, and WWE has been saying there's going to be change coming if Shane McMahon runs Raw, that things are going to get better. Is that the agenda really? Because, again, I don't feel as though there has been that much change. So is the agenda for Shane McMahon to run Raw strictly just for him to run Raw, or is there really going to be change, and in the long run there's something bigger coming?
I don't know. I mean, it's weird. The whole thing is weird to me because I always was under the belief that if Shane McMahon didn't win at WrestleMania, he would not have any power. He had to beat The Undertaker in order to get power. I don't know if that was directly said or not, but that was the impression that I got as a fan, that if Shane doesn't win, he won't have any power, and yet he has had power ever since. So that whole thing has been kind of strange to me, but it hasn't been a bad thing because Shane being in control is different. It's something that we haven't seen in a long time. So it's like, oh, okay, something new. But it's still, it does make the WrestleMania match kind of go into question for me. However, I'm not so sure if there is an agenda or not, but last week's Raw, April 11th Raw, it really did feel like there was a change in my opinion. Now, I know that's not what you guys think, or at least not what you thought, Lucas, judging off last week's show, but I feel that change was evident last week. You had the tournament, you had purposeful matches, and I think it translated to this week, maybe to a lesser degree, but Shane making matches right away and having rivalries and feuds actually go into something. And last week when he kicked Kevin Owens out of the arena, doing it so that way they're like, okay, well, you're not going to interfere in Zayn versus AJ Styles. That made sense, and those were sensible things to me. I was like, oh yeah, this does feel different. And the 3 hours flew by on April 11th for me, and that to me felt like a change on the first Raw right after WrestleMania. I didn't really see that much of a change that night, but I think that things do feel a little different. Again, I've enjoyed the last couple of Raws a lot more than I did the ones going into WrestleMania. Just me, but the change is there to a certain extent. I don't know if there's an agenda or not here. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it really is, because it's just like, again, this just proves even more that WrestleMania, Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, if Shane loses, he doesn't get control. If he wins, he does. It was a complete freaking waste of my time. And that's what I hate about this whole thing. You're telling me he loses the match, but Mr. McMahon gives him power in the first place. Mind you, we haven't even had a reason to why he is still in power for this week. So, yes, we have gotten some decent Raws, to say the least. Yes, last week it did feel, I do agree with you, Evan, it did feel different, but give me a reason to why Shane McMahon is in power in the first place still. That's all I want. We can get all this change all we want, but if the story is not consistent, if we don't have a purpose to get behind Shane McMahon running Raw, then it completely just defeats the purpose, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards as well. It's like we've seen Shane McMahon run Raw, but there's been no explanation. Vince McMahon hasn't come back to say why he's running Monday Night Raw due to overwhelming social media support. Shut the hell up. That is not enough of a reason to say Shane McMahon should be running Monday Night Raw right now. He freaking lost at WrestleMania. So I want a flat-out reason. I want a flat-out explanation as to why he's permanently, at least for now, controlling Monday Night Raw. We haven't seen the Authority, and I know they're probably holding this off for down the line for something bigger that's going to happen. But hell, we're still not sure though if that's going to happen because we haven't seen the Authority. So that's why I'm questioning what is the agenda, because if we haven't seen the Authority, how long is this going to play out? I mean, for God's sakes, how many more weeks can we put up with this and have no explanation? What's in the lockbox?
So is it like a situation where maybe Shane just runs Raw and the Authority runs SmackDown?
But see, that whole thing would have made so much more sense if it was going to be Shane winning at WrestleMania. But that doesn't happen, so now it just feels like it's kind of just being inserted. Like, well, what we said was going to happen at WrestleMania, it's not going to happen. We're just going to change that now because, it doesn't really matter anyway, right? Because wrestling, so we're just going to change it. Like, see, I don't like that attitude. I don't like that, like, just because we had something specific happen at WrestleMania, we're now going to undo that and just say forget about it. So, yeah, they do need to explain why Shane has been on. So I do feel like there has been a change, which is a very good piece, but I do want more of an explanation for why Shane has been running it, especially because now it's been 3 straight weeks. It's not like it just was one time. And Vince hasn't even been on these last couple of episodes. So where the hell is he at? He went off in his limo, which we all thought was going to explode, and then he left. And that was the end of that.
Yeah, and we all thought he was coming back. I mean, he said, this show is going to be a disaster or something. He said something along that line saying he's not even going to last one night. Well, if you didn't have any faith in him, well, why is he still running Raw? Because if there was no faith, you would have said this show sucked. Shane McMahon, you're never running Raw again. So we haven't seen him since. I feel like we should be seeing Vince. If we're not going to see Hunter or Stephanie, we should at least be seeing Mr. McMahon every week on Raw to battle it out with Shane McMahon until the Authority gets back. But we're not even getting that. And I think that would make for exciting television, seeing the father take on the son consistently, much like they were doing before WrestleMania.
Triple H versus Shane McMahon?
I mean, I know that's what's probably going to happen. We don't know yet. But still, we need to know.
Yeah.
See, I would have actually been happier if Vince McMahon on the show after WrestleMania had actually just flat out said, you know what, Shane, you showed me that you have toughness in that match when you jumped off that cell.
Beautiful.
And I'm gonna give you power like he basically earned his father's respect back. If he had said that, that's a reason. But he didn't give that reason. He just said, "Oh, I'm just gonna feed you to the wolves," and kind of like tried to shove it in his face. All right, that's fine. But like, if you give Shane that power, like now he has, and then you do it 3 weeks in a row, like that, you're not proving a point anymore. Now you're just giving power to Shane. So they could have fixed that, and instead they went a route that didn't make any sense. And it's almost as if like is Vince turning face and admitting that he's out of touch now, or like what's going on here? It's very confusing.
Yeah, so hopefully we get a payoff to that very soon. I know they usually tend to do these things for summer storylines heading into SummerSlam when WWE gets hot again. Yes, pun intended there. But we seriously need to see things shake up really soon in the WWE with Shane McMahon and the Authority. How ironic is it that before WrestleMania everybody wanted the Authority to be gone? Now all of a sudden everybody's saying, where the hell is the Authority again? How ironic is that? And also how ironic is it Undertaker wins at WrestleMania. They teased that it might be his last match if he loses, but now that he wins, it still might be his last match. Shane McMahon loses, and he's still fucking controlling Monday Night Raw. That doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, this whole dynamic has just been really strange, and that's something that I think that it will be clarified, but it should have been already. There's other things that I think like when we talked about the Bullet Club, when we talked about these NXT guys and how they I wish they made a bigger impact right away, and that's why I've been saying they don't have to. It can be more of a gradual thing. This isn't something you can just put off for 3 weeks. This is something that needs to be built up right away because this is control of your company. This is the overarching WWE we're talking about here. Exactly. So yeah, that's something you need to establish right away. What's going on? Why has Shane had power for 3 straight weeks? How come no one is questioning that? Even the commentator, no one's questioning why. They're just saying, well, there was a great outpouring on social media, like as if it's no big deal. So that part for me is definitely a disappointment too.
Yeah, it's like they made a huge deal about change coming and control. Like they were making this seem like, once Shane McMahon gets control, everything in WWE changes and it's going to have a major influence. It hasn't seemed that way. It just seems like, oh, Shane's in power, back to business, we move on. That's what it seems like, but it doesn't seem like it's ultimate, immediate change that we're getting, and that's ultimately a problem. Well, with all of that being said, guys, we want to thank you for tuning into PWF Empire tonight, and thank you for the wonderful, colorful feedback from last week and tonight. It was absolutely amazing, and yeah, I will look forward to the consideration that I will get from your feedback, and I will sincerely consider the feedback. Trust me, guys, from the bottom of my heart. Any final comments for Evan and Kaz there?
Later days.
That was fun. I enjoyed being on the show again here this week. Obviously, missed being here last week. Good to be with you guys, and definitely a change up from what I'm used to with Steven and Jay not being on. But yeah, I look forward to next week as well, and I think we had some good discussions. It was good that we're on different pages and that you can't really ask for better than that. Just having good debates, rating and debating the hottest topics in wrestling, and that's what PWF Empire Live is all about. So.
Yeah, and the discussion can continue off the air. If anybody wants to challenge me on the YouTube comment section below this video, feel free to. I'll be responding and reading a few of those. So I look forward to that. But as of now, guys, thank you for once again tuning in, and we will be back next week on Tuesday. I can't do the J thing. I'm sorry.
Tuesday.
For another edition of PWF Empire Live. Peace out.